Well, the political analyst Sanusha Naidu joins us now from the Institute for Global Dialogue. Sanusha, good afternoon to you. You've been watching our society for many, many years. How would you describe the contribution made by Jackson Mthembu?
Good afternoon, Stephen. And indeed, it is quite a sad day. And I think the sympathies to his family and friends. Reflecting on Jackson Mthembu, I think he was a very accessible individual. Even the limited interaction I may have had with him at State of the Nation addresses or in any other kind of platform, he always, as Kate Skinner said, he was always about engaging. And I think his contribution will always be remembered as playing the different roles that he played, both as the spokesperson for the ANC, his role as the ANC chief whip, and then now in the Ministry of the Presidency. But he was always quite interesting in terms of the fact that he would listen. You would actually hear him taking the time to hear you. And I think that's important. And I think he brought a sense of balance to any portfolio, any position, any platform that he was on, where he was able to bring in the different voices in a constructive way, like you rightly pointed out. And I think, this is something that will have to be looked at in terms of who's going to succeed him and whether that level of engagement with the media, which is quite an important position to hold, because in communication, you've got to balance things out. And he really did that in the way that he presented himself and the organization. And then, of course, as Minister in the Presidency, presented the government and the executive to the media and to every other space within the construct of the body politic.
I mean, in some ways, we sort of underestimate, I think, how difficult some of these communication jobs are. If you're speaking on behalf of Cabinet, it's actually an immensely difficult job to make announcements, write statements, and then answer questions from people, well, like myself. It's not an easy thing to do at all.
No, and he has to constantly firefight. That's what he did. But he has to make sure that he keeps a balance of his ministry or his cabinet as well. I think looking at him and the way he oversaw the COVID-19 briefings, I think was an interesting way in which he tried to maintain that balance, tried to bring in a bit of humor at times, but also keep the members of the NCC and other cabinet portfolio members in check as well with the media. And he had a very good relationship with the media, which I think kind of where you guys are coming from with regard to how this engagement was kind of smooth sailing for you all in the interactions you have. I think for me also, I mean, as you rightly pointed out, I was quite shocked when I saw it on the media, on the news this afternoon. But I think for most of us, it's also about how close is this to an executive of the state in terms of the executive management of our country. I think he's one of the most senior members now that has succumbed to the virus. And I think we can't ignore what it means for us in all of the other debates and all of the other challenges that are happening with regard to the rollout of the vaccine plan, where we've got the money to pay for it. I mean, that's a raging debate now, whether Treasury has the money to finance this vaccine procurement, and all these different kinds of possible ways are being put out about whether there's going to be an increase in a kind of COVID tax, whether you're going to borrow in international markets. Rating really doesn't enable that because of how costly it could be. So all of this, I think, kind of has to hit home for the executive now to say, you have to be pragmatic and be clear, coherent, and start putting stuff out there that is real.
Sanusha, I want us to take a moment to go back a bit, and this will probably display the kind of mettle that Mthembu had when, at some stage, when he was still chief whip of the ANC in Parliament, he had some pro-Zuma protagonists try to have him removed in the lead-up to Nasrec. He was actually isolated at some stage, but he seemed to have come back from that and really was also calling for unity in the organization.
For me, that's quite an interesting perspective. And it's also the kind of impression you get from the character of Jackson Mthembu. He understood what was at stake at Nasrec. He understood what was the unity issue. He also was very instrumental in how he put together that whole proposed debate about the removal of President Zuma in Parliament, to talk to the opposition, using that position as chief whip in a very strategic way. And I think you're right. He stuck to his guns, and he realized how important that was in the way that he got the ANC to shift its own thinking in Parliament, particularly with the protagonists that was in Parliament as well, besides Nasrec and besides the elected country.
Now, Sanusha, given the fact that Jackson Mthembu is a member of cabinet, the first member of the cabinet to succumb to COVID-19, and I would say the most senior member of government to succumb to COVID-19. Do you think this will in any way change the government's approach or response to COVID-19?
Tabu, I hope it does. I hope this is an eye-opener, lifts the veil off government to say you can't continue in this kind of wishy-washy way around the virus and the pandemic. It's real. People are dying. It's close. It's not somebody that you know of anymore, within your cabinet circle. And what also kind of makes me very wary is the fact that we have people in cabinet who could be also carrying the virus, asymptomatic or suffering, and we don't even know how severely ill they are in terms of this. So I hope this is an eye-opener for government, for Treasury, for the executive, for all of those individuals who are handling this COVID-19 plan and the rollout of the vaccine program, to say that this is what we need to do and we need to start moving, hitting the ground running, instead of still creating ministerials and committees, etc., to try and think about a rollout. We need the rollout.
Sanusha, I mean, what all of this does is it brings home once again the damage COVID-19 is doing to our society. It also, though, perhaps in quite an important way, humanizes it. And I say that because Jackson Mthembu was a household name. He's someone that people would have, gone to school hearing on the radio every morning.
Indeed, Stephen. I think it can't get any more real than this. I think for you, for Subu, and for my other colleague in the studio, we all have people that are close to us that have succumbed to this virus. And it's been really real for us. I lost a very good friend. And I think for government now, and for the fact that he was a senior cabinet member and a senior ANC veteran of sorts, I think it just has to be that you can't keep dilly-dallying around. You've got to basically see the humanity and the human side of this.
Sanusha Naidu, thank you very much indeed for joining us from the Institute for Global Dialogue. And just